Hey, Book Dragons, I'm so glad that you joined me today. I recently finished reading Malice by Keigo Higashino, and I'm really excited to talk with you about it. This will be a spoiler-free review, but I will say right off the bat, if you enjoy mysteries, you should definitely check this one out. Malice is the first book in the Detective Kaga series. It was originally written in Japanese and it was translated into English. I heard about this book for the first time on Tori's channel, Tori over at Tori Talks, and it sounded so good that I just had to give it a try. And I finally found a copy of it at a bookstore and grabbed it, and I decided I'm going to read that pretty much as soon as I can, and I'm really glad I did. It's written a little bit differently than your typical mystery novels. It has 9 chapters, or you might think of them as episodes. It's almost as if it was written as a serial script, like for a television series. So there's only 9 chapters, if you will, 9 sections or episodes, and it starts off with the murder already happening. And then a couple of chapters later, you've got the resolution and the confession all wrapped up in a nice little bow. And you're left wondering, okay, so where does the rest of the book go? Obviously, we must be going to dive into the history of how the murder happened, and that is partly true, but it takes a very sharp turn. It's a major twist in the book, and I'm not going to give that away. But when you first start reading the book, you're thinking to yourself, because I was thinking to myself, oh, this is pretty simple writing, easy to digest, pretty average story. And then, oh my gosh, guys, by the end of the book, you're like, what in the hell just happened here? What did I just read? It's definitely one of those books that just keeps you reading, even though at first you're kind of like, okay, this is good. And then the more you read, the more you just can't put it down. I think I read this in like 3 days or less. It was that quick. And I did not see the end coming. And that is to be expected, I guess, because you feel like you got the ending right within the first 3 chapters. You feel like, okay, it's all wrapped up. We know what happened. You don't know what happened. You really don't. You know part of what happened, but you don't have the full story. And so that was really masterfully done. And very different from Agatha Christie. So if you go into this book thinking that you're getting someone who's kind of a Agatha Christie knockoff, it's not, believe me. It is very different from Agatha Christie, but equally as good, I would say, as many Agatha Christie novels. It's just written in a very different format. And you are only following a handful of characters. So you've got Kyoichiro Kaga, who is the detective on the case, looking to try and figure out what's happened and solve the murder. And then you've got his friend Osamu Nanaguchi, who is a writer that lives in the area, and he and Detective Kaga have a history. They used to be schoolmates. And so those are the main characters that you are following throughout the book. There are other characters. There is a very famous writer by the last name of Hidaka that's been published and read worldwide and received several awards. And his wife plays a minor role in the story as well. Then there's a brief appearance by a next-door neighbor who Nanaguchi happens to run across at the beginning of the story. And so there are a few characters in the story, but really, you're only following Nanaguchi and Detective Kaga until around the end of the book, and then you start getting to see interviews that are being done with other people that are acquainted with different persons in the story. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating character study to see how this plays out. And that's definitely something that I appreciated, because when I got to the end of this book, I felt like I really knew these characters super well, and I felt like I wanted to get to know them even better. And there may be opportunities for that as I progress through the series, because this is only book one of the Detective Kaga mysteries. I think there's 4 books in the series. So I know at the very least I'm going to get to know Detective Kaga pretty well, and that's just not something that you get in a typical mystery story. Classic mystery stories, you get to know the main detective. Like in the Poirot books, throughout the series, you get to know Poirot better and better. You get to see his little idiosyncrasies, and he's so full of himself, and you see his little quirks. But he's really the only one in the books that I feel like I know really well. Even Captain Hastings, I don't feel like I really know that much about him. He's just a side character at best. It's really Poirot who steals the show. But all of the characters in this story are pretty well developed. And I'm definitely a character reader. I like a really well-developed character, and you definitely get it in this story. So if you like characters that are well fleshed out and interesting and are very nuanced and kind of keep you guessing, you're definitely going to find that here. So that's a big selling point for this story. Even though the mystery is very differently laid out than your traditional mystery story, it works. It just works so well. It draws you in. Even though you get to maybe chapter 3 and you feel like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's kind of the end of the story. It doesn't matter. You don't really care about that because you're just enjoying the journey. And oh man, there's way more journey to be had. So do not put this book down after the first couple of chapters, because you won't know anything about what's really been going on. So in that respect, it was very good. Now, you can tell early on that this is a translated book. You still kind of feel that throughout the book, but it starts to not become as noticeable because you're just so engrossed in the story. At least I was. And so I am going to definitely be reading more of this author's works, and I was just fascinated to look up information about him on the internet, and apparently he's quite prolific, a very popular author in Japan, and to have so many of his books translated in the U.S., I know at least most of them are. That's really saying something. He's a fantastic writer, and the translator did a really good job. I think it was translated by, Alexander Smith, along with Ellie Alexander. Maybe that's his associate translator, I'm not sure. But I've never heard of them before. But it looks like they do all the translation works for Keigo's books. And I thought it was very well done. I felt like it worked well in my native language of English. I know a little Japanese, but only enough to be dangerous. So it's better that I read this in English. I definitely recommend this. And a lot of times there's readathons out there that have prompts where you have to read a translated book. This is perfect. It's a quick read, and it's very, very well done. I highly recommend it. I can't think, really, of anything that I did not like about the book. It flowed really well. The story was interesting and engaging. That sharp right turn with the twist at the end was just mind-blowing. It blew me away. It really did. I hope you will pick this book up and enjoy it as much as I did. If you love mysteries, you for sure want to check this book out. So that is all I have to say about it. Let me know in the comments below if you've read this book. Let me know your thoughts on it. If you haven't read it and it sounds interesting to you, I definitely think you should go ahead and pick it up, and let me know in the comments as well if you are going to pick it up. And until next time, guys, make sure you read more books, and if you want to watch more of my content, here's some ideas on the end screen.